back to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. Today we're going to be sitting down with adoptive parents Jennifer and Phil, who are going to share their experience of being placed with their daughter. So welcome, guys.
Hi, Amanda.
Nice
Hi,
to have
how are
you. Talk to us a little bit about when you first decided on adoption and what brought you to Adoptions from the Heart particularly.
Sure. Do you want me to take
Yeah,
this?
why don't you start?
Yeah, so we've been trying to have a baby for a while, and we, found out through the course of, medical intervention that it wasn't going to be possible for us to have a biological child of our own. And so we started to think about, what are other ways we can build our family? And, we talked about it, and we took a lot of time to kind of think about what, we wanted to do. And I'd heard about Adoptions from the Heart, I think, through some of your advertising, and we went to an info session, and it just felt so right. And so pretty much within a week or two, we'd already filled our application and, started the process. And I think it felt so natural. Once we started to learn more about adoption, especially about open adoption, I never questioned our choice, to move forward with the adoption process. And obviously we're really happy because we have our daughter now.
Yeah. Phil, did you have any fears or just caution going into this process?
I think you always do,
Sure.
right? Because it's not the obvious way. It's not
Yeah.
the old-fashioned way that people grow their families. But I think we figured out through the Adoptions from the Heart education that it was really something good for us. We learned about things and we were able to question things as a future parent that we never really had to consider. So I think that really helped us grow and mature as parents even before we were expecting or soon to be placed. So it's the unknown, but sometimes just have to light a match and sit on it.
Sure.
And like Jennifer said, it eventually comes to fruition where it helps you build that family. But I would be lying if we both were to say that we didn't question some things along the way or have some fears of the unknown. But the education and the entire process really helps you address those with a lot of great fact-based information.
Sure. Oftentimes people are curious of what does the wait period look like, right? How do you ultimately get presented with your quote-unquote match? Can you talk a little bit about when you first heard about your daughter?
Yeah, so we've been waiting for a little bit, and we were just really making an effort to kind of live our lives, and we were both working and still doing some travel and really just trying to not think too much about it. And then we actually got an email, saying that there's a baby girl and we think you guys would be a match, but we found out through that email that she was born quite prematurely. So, if we said yes, we'd have to be, she'd be in the NICU for a long time. And we, talked about it, and I mean, our guts both told us immediately, this is a great, chance for us. And this is, could be our family. And so we said yes, and it turned out that our daughter's birth mother, had a few other couples that she was considering as well, but she ultimately chose us. And we were in the car on our way, out of state to go meet our daughter and then stay with her for, a long stay in the hospital. But it worked out, perfectly. I wouldn't change it.
How long were you actually in that state for?
So we were in that state almost 2.5 months. So from the middle of December to the middle of February.
Wow. What was that like? Because I know, when people go into the process, they're curious of what will this look like. They understand potentially you have to travel to another state, may have to be there for a couple of weeks. But what did that actually feel like to have to relocate yourselves for that amount of time?
Yeah, so, when you go into this, you hear about the stories of, well, if you're placed in Virginia, there's that 5-week stay. If you're placed in Pennsylvania, where we live, well, that could be very easy. This was something extra, and I think something a little bit more unique. I think it was a benefit that it came in a potential email match situation where we could consider that. And it said, she was born premature. We think it's going to be at least 6 weeks. She's healthy, but she just needs some extra time to grow and to be monitored. So we knew with the holidays coming up and paternity leave and vacation and our flexibility with our work situations and lives, this was something we could address as a husband and wife and potentially as parents. So knowing up front about how long it would be really helped. Did it get a little bit longer, a few extra weeks? Yes, but by that point we already knew what we were getting ourselves into.
Sure. What advice would you give other families to kind of prepare for that? Because, sometimes we like things the way they're expected to go and to have to be flexible and open-minded to things changing, right? You ended up being there a little bit longer than expected. What advice would you give folks to kind of the bigger picture of why things worked out for you?
Yeah. I think my advice, and maybe Phil, you have other advice, but is don't stress those changes too much. Don't get too wrapped up in thinking about the changes, because once we were there and we met our daughter, it's like everything shifts. And I know that sounds very cliche, and people probably hear all the time that like once you meet your child, that's it. But then we were going to the hospital every day and being out of state because we were with our daughter. And I would never change that, because I needed to be there to, help provide her care and, meet with the doctors, and, we got to hold her every day and still take care of her. And so my advice would be, it seems scary that maybe things will go differently or things won't be like this nice, tidy little package. But once you're in that moment, it doesn't matter. Like, it's so great to just be with your child.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think it's just really, diving in head first. Like, this is a monumental change in your family. You're going to +1, so just really embrace it. Like, by the time it was done, I started missing going down to get a coffee in the hotel in the mornings and bring back, coffees for us. And, we still make time for ourselves. So almost every week we would try to go out for a nice date night, go to a nice restaurant, enjoy ourselves, because, we're still husband and wife, and it's not easy, right? You're still living out of state, you're living out of a hotel. So just to try to, I don't want to say make the best of it, but just try to find some extra things that could be enjoyable. And you probably think I would be lying, but the time did go fast. I mean, it was fun because, as Jennifer said, like, we were still with her 12 hours a day, some days longer, some days shorter, and that was our lives at the time. Like, that's just what you do. And
yeah. Well, I love your optimism.
Yeah.
It's hard because it's a short period of time in your child's very long life. And when you're in that moment, sometimes it can be challenging, but you have to look at the bigger picture, right?
Yeah,
you want to build your family. You want to have your forever child.
Right. And I always remind myself too, even if I'd been able to conceive and we could have had a child, there's no guarantee that it would have fit into a nice tidy box either.
Yeah.
And every family building experience, whether, it's a biological child or, you're placed for a child, your child's placed with you for adoption, it's never going to be perfect and tidy and just like wrapped up with the bow. There's always going to be things that are like, oh, that was not what I expected, but it doesn't make it any less beautiful.
Sure, absolutely. I oftentimes will have families that are at the initial stage of adopting, and they say to me, I want to hear more from families. I want to hear their story. I want to hear their perspective. So I just want to give you the platform to give out any other advice in general about your experience, whether it's the procedure, just how you got through things, just advice that you would have for families coming into this process who still feel a little cautious. This is very overwhelming. It's a huge decision to make. Any advice you could give to them?
So I would just say, be open-minded and just really, take your time to sit with your thoughts and think about things, and then address maybe where you have fears or you're concerned, but then, be open about that. And then also, be open-minded enough to think, well, what if that happened? Is that really the worst thing that could happen? Is that, so detrimental, or would that be great maybe later on? Like Phil said, we have this great story, this experience, and a bonding experience with our child that, came out of a somewhat scary situation, right? Or a very unknown situation. So, being open-minded, I think.
Absolutely.
And being able to jump in with both feet.
I like that.
Yeah. And I would just say utilizing all the resources.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of resources online if you're someone who just likes to, scroll the webpage and read through all the documents. There's also the, all the workers here are so friendly and able to help out with either hypotheticals or with past cases that apply to even the most extreme examples like ourselves. But it really helps knowing that somebody else probably went through something similar, and if they got through it, then we would get through it, and hopefully someone else would as well.
Wonderful. Well, we're so happy that you were blessed with Mia and that you guys have a beautiful family.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, guys. And if you think of other topics or ideas, please comment below.